Camping is often described as peaceful. A way to escape the noise of the city, to sit under the open sky, and to feel the world as it once was. For four close friends in the summer of 2014, that escape brought them to a hidden lake. The lake was not found on any tourist map. It was not mentioned in the guides you find at ranger stations. It was spoken about quietly in an online forum where people shared places that felt untouched by the modern world. That mystery made the friends eager to see it for themselves. The hike was long, their packs heavy. But when they reached the lake, the view was worth every step. The water was smooth as glass, catching the orange glow of the setting sun. The trees crowded the edges of the water, tall and still, almost as if they were guarding it. To the friends, the place felt private. It felt like their own. The evening began as they had hoped. They set up their tent, collected wood, and started a fire. The flames rose, warm and bright, snapping as they burned. They cooked, they laughed, and their voices carried easily in the open night. For hours, it felt like any other trip into the wild. But slowly, things began to change. At first, it was the animals. The frogs by the water fell silent. The steady rhythm of crickets stopped. Even the owls in the trees went quiet. The forest, once alive, seemed to hold its breath. The friends noticed. They lowered their voices. Their laughter thinned. The fire popped and cracked, but the silence beyond it felt heavy. One friend finally whispered what the others already feared: "It feels like someone's out there." They shone a flashlight toward the trees. The beam cut into the darkness, but it showed nothing except branches and bark. Still, when the light went out, the feeling remained. Stronger than before. Minutes passed. Then came the sound. Leaves shifting. A slow step. Then another. Careful. Controlled. Not the fast scamper of an animal. Not the leap of a deer. But a person. Moving with purpose. The friends froze. They listened. The steps circled part of the clearing, then stopped. One friend called out, his voice shaking, "Hello. Who's there?" Silence. There was no reply. But the fear did not fade. The shadows outside the firelight seemed to grow deeper, as though the dark itself was pressing closer. Later, inside their tent, they tried to calm themselves. They told each other it was their imagination. But when the sound returned, their fear became real. Crunch. Step by step. Around the tent. The fire outside glowed faintly against the fabric. And then, a shadow fell across it. The shape of two legs. Standing still. One friend grabbed the flashlight, unzipped the flap, and shone it into the clearing. Nothing. The trees stood quiet. The lake was calm. The ground was empty. But by morning, proof appeared. Stuck deep into a tree, only a few feet from where they had slept, was a knife. Old. Weathered. Its handle worn, its blade dull with time. They had not seen it before. It was waiting for them. The decision was instant. They would not stay another night. But before they left, one last image burned itself into their memory. Around 3 in the morning, while the fire was low, they all saw it. A figure. At the far edge of the clearing. Standing just beyond the firelight. Not moving. Not speaking. Watching. It stayed there for what felt like minutes. long enough for each of them to see it clearly. And then, without a word, it turned. Step by step, it disappeared into the trees. When dawn arrived, the forest looked normal again. The sky brightened, the water reflected the light, and the ground seemed still. But in the dirt were footprints. Clear. Human. They led to the tree line, and stopped there. As if the person had vanished. The friends hiked back to the ranger station in silence. When they told the ranger their story, he listened closely. His reply was short. That area is not on any official trail. No one is supposed to be out there. He promised to check. But the friends never went back to that lake. And to this day, the strongest memory they share is not the laughter, or the fire, or even the silence. It is that figure. Motionless. Watching. Waiting. Imagine keeping a journal of your camping trip. Each day, you write down what you see, what you feel, what you hear. But then, the last words in that journal say this: if I don't make it back, know that it wasn't an accident. That was the final entry from a man who vanished in the woods. To this day, no one has seen him again. He was not inexperienced. The man was in his early 30s, a traveler who loved the outdoors. He had camped before, hiked long trails, and often told his friends that the forest was where he felt most alive. In late September, he set out alone, carrying a backpack, a tent, and his journal. His plan was simple: spend a week in the woods, record his thoughts, and return with stories to share. He arrived at a national forest, miles from the nearest town. He parked his car near a ranger station, signed in, and followed a narrow trail deep into the trees. No one saw him after that. The first journal entries were calm. Day 1, clear skies. The lake looks beautiful. I'm the only one out here. His words painted the picture of an ordinary trip. He wrote about cooking over the fire, hearing owls at night, and feeling at peace away from work and noise. But after 2 nights, his writing changed. The tone shifted. He wrote, "The forest is quiet. Too quiet. Even the crickets stopped. The air smells strange tonight, like metal, sharp and heavy. Hard to explain." The forest around him had gone still. Anyone who camps often knows how unnatural that silence can feel. It is not just the absence of sound. It is as if the world itself pauses. On the 4th night, he described something far more unusual. He wrote, "I heard children laughing. Clear as day. But there are no houses for miles. No campsites. No reason for kids to be here." He searched with his flashlight, but the woods remained empty. The next morning, while gathering wood, he noticed something else. On the bark of nearby trees, deep cuts had been carved. Shapes. Symbols. Circles with lines through them. Marks that did not appear natural. His journal entry from that day read, "Whoever made these, they wanted them to be seen. They're close to my tent. Too close." Each night, his notes grew shorter. His handwriting became harder to read, as if written in haste. "Something moved outside my tent last night. Slow steps. I didn't look. I can smell it again. Stronger. It's following me." By the 6th night, his fear was clear in every word. His final entry was brief, written across half a page. "Something is circling me. It won't go away. If I don't make it back, know that it wasn't an accident." That was the last anyone ever heard from him. Days later, a search party was sent out after he missed his checkout date. They found his campsite. The fire was still warm. His backpack leaned against a log. His tent was standing. His journal was left open, as though he had been writing only minutes earlier. But he was gone. There were no signs of struggle. No blood. No tracks leading away. His footprints ended a few feet into the trees, and then vanished. To this day, there is no clear answer. Some believe he was taken by an animal. But if it was, why were there no tracks? Why no signs of struggle? Others believe he simply got lost. But his gear was untouched. His shoes, food, and supplies were all still there. And then there are those who read his words, the laughter of children in the woods, the carved symbols on the trees, the smell in the air, and they believe something else entirely. That he did not leave the forest by choice. That something in those woods claimed him. The truth may never be known. The family of 5 had planned this trip for months. A father, a mother, and their 3 children. They wanted a weekend away from the rush of their small town, away from screens, phones, and noise. They chose a campsite by the river, not far from a bend where the water was shallow enough for the children to play safely. When they arrived, the scene could not have been more perfect. The river glided by, steady and calm, catching the sunlight. The trees leaned close to the water, their leaves brushing the surface in the breeze. The parents pitched their tent near the bank, while the children skipped rocks across the water, their laughter ringing out. The first day was full of peace. Fishing, walking, eating by the fire. And that night, as the river whispered beside them, they fell asleep feeling safe. On the second evening, the river grew louder in the dark. The sound of flowing water can feel comforting, but it can also hide other noises. Still, nothing seemed unusual. The children roasted marshmallows. The fire glowed against their faces. And when the stars filled the sky, the family lay down in their tent together. The parents drifted off first, their children tucked close. But sometime past midnight, the silence broke. A scream ripped across the river. Sharp. Long, full of panic. The mother sat upright, her heart racing. The father reached for the flashlight. The children stirred, frightened by the sound. The scream came again. This time closer. It echoed through the trees, bounced across the water, and seemed to rise right from the river itself. The father unzipped the tent and shone the light across the water. The beam cut through the mist that had gathered over the surface. But there was nothing there. Only water, rushing endlessly past. They argued in hushed voices. Was it someone hurt? A camper in trouble? Or just the strange way sound travels across water at night? They decided to wait. The screams eventually stopped, and the family stayed awake until the fire burned down to embers. Only then did they sleep again. But the next night, the screams returned. Louder. Closer. This time, the children cried. The youngest, a girl no older than 6, pointed toward the river and said she had seen a woman standing on the opposite bank. The parents comforted her, telling her it was just a dream. But she insisted. She was wearing white. She was waving. The father again searched the river with his flashlight. Nothing. No figure. No footprints. Just the constant rush of water. The mother wanted to leave, but the father convinced her to stay one more night. He believed there was a simple explanation, and he did not want to cut the trip short. The third night came. The family huddled close around the fire, nervous, waiting. Hours passed with only the sound of the river. Then, the scream. It was closer than ever. So close it seemed to rise from the water right in front of them. The children cried out. The parents froze. And then they saw her. At the center of the river, knee-deep in the flowing water, stood a figure. A woman. Dressed in white. Her hair dark and wet, clinging to her face. Her head tilted upward, her mouth open, though no sound came. She did not move. She only stared across the river at their camp. The flashlight shook in the father's hand. The beam touched her face, but she did not blink. Her eyes reflected the light back like glass. Then, without warning, she turned and sank into the water. The river swallowed her in seconds. When the light passed over again, the water was empty. No ripples. No trace. That was enough. The family did not wait until morning. They packed their things in silence, their hands trembling, their eyes fixed on the dark river. They drove through the night, not stopping until they reached the safety of town. When they shared their story with locals, the response chilled them further. They were told of an old legend. Long ago, a woman had drowned in that river. Some said it was an accident. Others said she had been pulled under. But the tale went that her spirit remained, calling out to anyone who camped along the bank. Sometimes with screams. Sometimes with whispers. And sometimes, with an appearance so real that it left people fleeing in the dead of night. The family never camped there again. And when they tell the story now, they always repeat the same words: the river was not empty. Something was waiting there.